At dinner that evening at a local restaurant, Woody talked nonstop about Manhattan murder mystery, which, despite everything, we were planning to begin in a few weeks. When we got back to the house, he went upstairs, sat on Dylan's bed, and began a bedtime story for her and Satchel. Tam, realizing who was in the room, started screaming, while Woody angrily and determinedly proceeded with his story. I tried to calm Tam. After a while, I asked Woody if he would please hurry the story a little, but he glared at me and continued. Dylan and Satchel were staring worriedly at Tam, and nobody could hear anything but screams. When finally he finished and went out, Tam brightened up. I kissed all the kids, turned on their nightlight, and left the room. Woody was waiting in the hall, livid. "Just look what you've done," he said. "You'd better shape up, or there's no way you're going to be in this movie." I started crying again. "Why is everything always my fault?" I said to his back as he went down the stairs. "Does it never occur to you that you might be in some part responsible for any of this?" The next morning, after Woody left for the city, Casey phoned to say that her babysitter, Allison, had seen something at my house that had bothered her. While Casey and I had been out shopping, Allison had gone to the television room looking for one of the Pascal children. She saw Dylan sitting on the couch, staring straight ahead with a blank expression. Woody was kneeling in front of her with his face in her lap. Allison told Casey she was shocked because it seemed intimate, something you'd say, "Oops, excuse me," if both had been adults. I remembered that Dylan had not been wearing underpants. I hung up the phone and asked Dylan, who was sitting at the foot of my bed, "Did Woody have his face in your lap yesterday?" He had been told by the therapist not to do precisely that thing. "Yes," she said. I had just been videotaping the baby, so I grabbed the camera. Dylan went on to say that he was breathing into her legs. She told me he was holding her around the waist, and that when she tried to get up, he secretly put one hand here, she pointed, and touched my privates, and I do not like that one bit. She told me that Woody had taken her upstairs into the attic, and that he had touched her private parts with his finger. "Don't move," he had said to her. "I have to do this. If you stay still, we can go to Paris. Don't tell." "He was kissing me," Dylan said. "I got soaked all over the whole body. I had to do what he said. I'm a kid. I have to do whatever the grown-ups say. It hurt. It hurt when he pushed his finger in. He said the only way for me to be in the movie is to do this. I don't want to be in his movie. Do I have to be in his movie? He just kept poking it in." I immediately telephoned my lawyer, who instructed me to take her to the doctor. Barely audibly, Dylan told our pediatrician that Woody had put his face in her lap and had touched her, but when she asked where, she wouldn't talk anymore. The doctor told me to bring her back the next day. When we got into the car, she said, "I just don't like talking to strangers about my private parts." Over the next 24 hours, whenever she brought it up, in fits and starts, I switched on the camera. We returned to the doctor's office the next day, and Dylan repeated what she had told me. The doctor called later to tell me that he was required by law to notify the authorities, and that he was going to do so, although the physical exam of Dylan showed no sign of sexual abuse. I phoned the therapist who'd been working with Woody for almost 2 years about his behavior with Dylan. As soon as I told her what Allison had seen him doing, she interrupted, "He's not supposed to do that." I told her all of it, and she said that if the Connecticut doctor was going to report it, then she would have to report it as well to the New York authorities, but first she was going to tell Woody. "Don't tell him," I said. "I'm scared of what he'll do. Can't you just deal with it? Don't report it to the authorities. That will destroy everything. It's too big. Terrible things are going to happen." I was standing outside near the lake, holding the cordless phone. It was a hot August afternoon. The kids were playing on the beach. A robin hopped across the grass. Everything looked so normal, except that Dylan was lying in the hammock wrapped in a quilt. I stood frozen in horror and thought, Jesus Christ, what's going to happen now?" The full force of what had happened hit me. In that instant, the pain and confusion of the past 7 months fell away. My mind was clear. My only objective now was to protect my child. When Christy, the babysitter, returned from her regular days off, I asked her what had happened that day. She told me that Dylan and Woody had disappeared that afternoon. She had looked for them in all the rooms of the house, upstairs and down. She had called out Dylan's name. Sophie, who was outside, said they weren't there. She hadn't wanted to tell me, but for about 20 minutes they were missing. The Connecticut State Police instructed me to bring Dylan in to meet with child welfare authorities. The interviewing caseworker determined that there was cause to believe that sexual abuse might have occurred. With that, the police opened an investigation. Later, the Child Welfare Services caseworker in New York, Paul Williams, spoke to Dylan's psychologist, who belatedly reported Dylan's statement to her that Mr. Allen had put a finger in her vagina. Now Dylan seemed withdrawn. Sophie said, "Countless times I would look for her in the middle of the day, and then I'd find her in her bed, under the blankets, all alone, awake, when it was a beautiful day and everybody else was outside playing. I would ask her to join us, but she wouldn't." Dylan wet her bed several times after August 4th, something she hadn't done since she was 3 years old. Over the next weeks, every time she brought up the experience, I tried to comfort her. "I don't want him to do it again, Mommy. I don't want him to do it again." I was terrified of all that was ahead of us. Once I said to her, "Dylan, it's important that you tell the truth. This is a very big deal. Woody says nothing happened in the attic." "He's lying," she said. In one of our last conversations, Woody had asked me, "Is there any way out? I just want to be friends." I said, "You're crazy, Woody. I really think you're crazy." I was still hoping that this hadn't happened to my child. "Where were you when everybody looked all over the house? If you weren't in the attic, where were you?" He stumbled and stuttered, but he wouldn't answer my question. I asked him and I asked him. I asked him every which way, maybe 20 times, "Woody, just tell me where you were." But he would not answer me. On August 13th, 1992, 7 days after Woody learned of Dylan's accusation, papers were served to me, the respondent, in Connecticut. Woody Allen, the petitioner, was initiating a suit in the New York State Supreme Court for custody of Dylan, Satchel, and Moses. In this suit, Woody stated that the petitioner is the father of the following children: 1. Satchel Farrow, born on September 19, 1987. Satchel was born in December. The natural child of petitioner, and 2. Moses Amadeus Farrow, born on January 27, 1978, adopted by petitioner December 17, 1991. Moses was previously adopted by respondent in the state of Massachusetts pursuant to an order of the probate of the Court of Dukes County entered on January 9, 1981, and 3. Dylan O'Sullivan Farrow, born on July 11, 1985, adopted by petitioner December 17, 1991. Dylan was previously adopted by respondent. Moses, Satchel, and Dylan are hereafter collectively referred to as the children. The children from birth or from the dates of their adoption have been physically resident and domiciled with respondent at 135 Central Park West in the city, county, and state of New York, New York residents. There are no other children to which this application applies. Petitioner is presently 56 years of age, and respondent is 46 years of age. Although petitioner and respondent have had an ephemeral relationship for the past 12 years, they have never cohabited with one another and have always maintained separate residences. Until January 1992, petitioner visited with the children on a sustained basis at respondent's New York apartment and elsewhere for daily breakfast and dinner and other activities. In or about January 1992, respondent commenced preventing petitioner from having regular visitation with the children. Since August 5, 1992, respondent has prevented petitioner from any visitation or contact with the children. Respondent has been and presently is emotionally disturbed and is under constant heavy medication. Upon information and belief, respondent has physically abused one or more of her children. I believe that the children are in great fear of the respondent by reason of her emotional instability and abusive conduct. Respondent's past and present actions have created great emotional distress for the children, which has necessitated psychiatric intervention. Respondent has falsely accused the petitioner of sexually abusing Dylan and Satchel and continues to falsely claim that petitioner is guilty of sexually abusing them. Satchel had never been sexually abused, and no one had ever asserted that he had been. Respondent is brainwashing the children with respect to false allegations of sexual misconduct on the part of the petitioner. Respondent, who was unable to manage the rearing of 9 children, recently adopted Tam Farrow and Isaiah Farrow. Tam is 12 years old and blind. Isaiah is a 7-month-old crack baby. Petitioner has been informed that the respondent has made application to adopt 2 additional children, both of whom are blind. At that time, I had not made any further applications to adopt children. Respondent is incapable of raising any additional children. The presence and condition of respondent's additional 8 children are inimical to the health, welfare, and best interests of the children. It is in the best interests of Satchel, Moses, and Dylan that physical and jural custody be awarded to their father, the petitioner herein. The petitioner respectfully requests that the court direct the respondent to physically produce the 3 children on the return date hereof. Petitioner is a capable and fit parent to assume sole custody of the children and possesses the ability to provide them with a happy, healthy, and stable home and environment. Within moments of these papers being filed, even before I knew of their existence, the news was leaked to the media. Incredibly, in a frantic effort to distract the public from the facts and salvage the mythology of his reputation, Woody was seeking to make me the issue. It was a preemptive legal action initiated when it became apparent to him that a criminal investigation of his conduct was about to become public. If he was believed, then all my minor children would surely be taken away. The ones he didn't want, Isaiah and Tam, would be put into foster care. 4 days later, the Connecticut State Police publicly confirmed that they were conducting an investigation that involved Woody Allen. The following day, Woody gave a press conference on national television. He denied that he had sexually abused Dylan and claimed the allegations were nothing but a currently popular though heinous card played in all too many custody fights. Regarding my love for Suni, he went on, it's real and happily all true. She's a lovely, intelligent, sensitive woman who has and continues to turn around my life in a wonderfully positive way. At Frog Hollow, several of the older kids and I watched this press conference in horror and stunned disbelief. My lawyer responded, stating only that Mr. Allen had filed his custody suit to deflect attention from child abuse investigations that had been ongoing for the past 2 weeks in Connecticut and New York City. He also pointed out that the investigations were not instigated by me, as Woody Allen was claiming, but by the child's doctor, who had notified the authorities. But Woody was louder and far more relentless. He began a campaign of damage control that reshuffled the chronology of events. In late August, he gave lengthy interviews to Time and Newsweek magazines. Time's Walter Isaacson asked him, "But wasn't it breaking many bonds of trust to become involved with your lover's daughter?" "There's no downside to it," replied Woody. "The only thing unusual is that she's Mia's daughter, but she's an adopted daughter and a grown woman. I could have met her at a party or something." "Were you still involved with Mia when you became interested in Suni?" Isaacson asked. "My relationship with Mia was simply a cordial one in the past 4 years, a dinner maybe once a week together. Our romantic relationship tapered off after the birth of Satchel, tapered off quickly." "What was your relationship with Suni when you first started going over there to visit your children?" "I never had an extended conversation with her," Woody admitted. "As a matter of fact, I don't think she liked me too much. The last thing I was interested in was the whole parcel of Mia's children. I spent absolutely 0 time with any of them. This was not some type of family unit in any remote way." He went on to say, "I didn't find any moral dilemmas whatsoever. I didn't feel that just because she was Mia's daughter there was any great moral dilemma. It was a fact, but not one with any great import. These people are a collection of kids. They are not blood sisters or anything. It wasn't like she was my daughter." When asked if he considered his relationship with Suni a healthy, equal one, he answered, "Who knows? The heart wants what it wants." Regarding Dylan's claims, Woody said he had not been alone with her that day. "Nothing at all happened," he said. "In light years, I wouldn't go into an attic. I wouldn't even know how to find Mia's attic." "This is so laughable," he went on in Newsweek. "I have never been in an attic. I'm a famous claustrophobic. Wild horses couldn't get me into an attic."